Picture this. Early man discovers these things called stones. Pretty cool things, come in all shapes and sizes, but that's not all. Early man later realizes that these stones can be manipulated to their will. What you do is grab one of these newfangled stones, tie it to the end of a large stick, and boom, you got yourself a spear. A spear for killing and hunting the mammoth, to turn into what I'm sure will be a hearty meal. Early man, so clever, coming up with such amazing technology. The Stone Age lasted for roughly 3.4 million years, never mind. Naturally, this period in time is best known for its raptors, and the fact that early man used them as transport. I'm sorry, what? Landfall, I hate to break it to you. The end of the Stone Age was marked by the use of metal tools, marking the Bronze Age, but sadly there's no Bronze Age representation in this game. However, what does have some representation is ancient Greece. Finally, a period in history where mankind's intellect is put on full display. This period in Greek history is also pretty influential for humanity as a whole. The Greeks made important contributions to mathematics, medicine, and most notably philosophy. It's probably the first thing that comes to mind when you think ancient Greece. We've also got the appearance of some mythical beings, namely Zeus and the Minotaur. We've also got the hoplites, which were pretty much just standard foot soldiers, and the ballista, the preferred way of shooting large arrows. The end of the ancient Greek period was marked by the Romans conquering them. I mean, what followed is pretty cool, but for some reason Landfall didn't make a Roman faction, and they honestly really missed a beat there. Unfortunately, the included time period that chronologically follows this one was a lot worse for humanity. Tabs and history. It's either a connection you laugh at or one that you made as soon as you saw the game. With a name like Totally Accurate Battle Simulator, it seems that Landfall was at least trying to parody real world history in a wacky and weird way. Most of the stuff on display actually existed at some point. You could point at the Greek gods like Artemis and Zeus and yell, those weren't real. You would be correct, but the mythologies these originated from were real, and these gods were worshipped by people at some point in history. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that Landfall was 100% historically accurate, because of course they took some creative liberties. The point being, this game does have its roots in history, and to some extent is based on history. On top of this, the game has attracted fans of history. Some of the mods are pretty good history-wise, and hey look, I found the game. And as your resident, I know more about tanks than most people I know, I can say I do appreciate the links to history. This isn't going to be a comprehensive list of every historical link, merely a timeline of real-world history, told only with the factions and the units that make them up. I couldn't find a place in history for the Farmer and Spooky faction, as I couldn't find a period in time that they fit in. But aside from that, all factions have their place, and without any further ado, let's continue. Alright, what year is it and where are we? Europe, and any time from the fall of Rome to the Renaissance. The Dark Ages, Middle Ages, Medieval Era. This period goes by many names, but essentially it wasn't great. Known as the Dark Ages due to the fact that literally nothing of note happened that progressed humanity. No scientific accomplishments, no great born leaders. This period in time was a complete spit in the face to the period it preceded. And it seems from the knights, priests and kings that we're somewhere in Western Europe where Catholicism is the most powerful thing going. The king may very well be physically the strongest thing here, but it's actually the church that has more power. The priest, this unit is most likely the manifestation of people's beliefs that the church could heal the sick. No Black Death rep though. Black Death fans, I'm sorry. Squires, basically a knight in training. And by the way, being a knight isn't as cool as you may think. The catapult, a pretty popular way of hurling large rocks. While Europe was busy being religious, one group of individuals was busy raiding and trading. The Vikings, widely known for their violent raids, originally starting in Scandinavia and eventually reaching places such as England, Ireland, France. However, Vikings weren't just one-dimensional barbarians, and definitely were not capable of leaping that far. The Vikings were also traders and explorers, being the first from Europe to reach America. The Longship, a pretty iconic vessel used to tackle the high seas. The first appearance of Norse mythology is the Valkyrie, individuals who chose who lived and died in battle. Valkyries would then take their dead warriors to Valhalla, and it is at this point my understanding of this leaves me. If things seem grim, fear not, for we have entered the Renaissance, or the Rebirth. A fitting name for a period in time that involved lots of advancements, but honestly the Dark Ages didn't exactly set the bar very high. Of course, military technology saw its fair share of advancements. For example, gunpowder. It had been used in other parts of the world for a while now, but Europe had only just about caught on. I mean, gunpowder is pretty neat stuff. You light it on fire and it goes bang. Pretty cool. But there's always that one guy who stands up and asks, cool, how can I kill someone with it? But to answer the one question I'm sure is on everyone's mind, yes, this turtle shell looking thing was real. The machine was designed by Leonardo da Vinci during the 1400s, but I couldn't find anything that stated it was ever used in combat. And I mean, come on, it's the 1400s. People didn't even know what a germ was. Do you think they could get this tank running? With all these events happening in Europe, you naturally ask yourself, what about Asia? Well, China is busy being ruled by the Mings, and Japan is still being ruled by the samurai. The inclusion of the samurai, ninjas, and the Monkey King placed the dynasty faction around the 1600s to 1800s. The Monkey King, He was a being of fiction from a novel written around the 1600s. The samurai. These fellas were the hereditary military nobility, and if that doesn't scream I just looked that up because I literally have no grasp on Asian history, then I don't know what does. It would also be around this time that piracy was an all-new high. To be fair, piracy has been and always will be a thing. If there's something to steal, then there'll be someone to steal it. But the pirates depicted in this faction appeared around the 1600s. This period was known as the Golden Age of Piracy, and it was centered around the Caribbean, North American Eastern Seaboard, West African coast, and the Indian Ocean. Now, most units here seem pretty standard. You got your flintlock, your blunderbuss, and your pirate captain. But one unit led me down the largest rabbit hole of this entire video, the Pirate Queen. Now, was the Pirate Queen an actual individual? Well, yes. One Grace O'Malley. I think I'm saying that right. Whether Landfall had her in mind when creating this unit remains to be seen, but this individual is far too interesting and has too much going on for me to condense the events of her pirate life into a few sentences. Alright, give it to me straight. What year and where? Well, it's the 1800s and we're in America. A few years prior, the 13 colonies told King George to go do one by passing a Declaration of Independence, making the former British territory an independent nation. America, still a pretty young country, saw all this land in their backyard and concluded it must be theirs. Surely. Such began the westward expansion, the time period depicted by the Wild West faction. A time where white settlers started settling and migrating westward in search of land to farm, gold to mine, and space to live. The dynamite thrower and the miner seemed to be representative of the gold rush, which consisted of a flurry of settlers rushing west in search of wealth, as large amounts of gold had been discovered, and of course everyone wanted in. The gunslinger. Yeah, that's made up. The rest of the units in this faction fit the theme really well, but aren't necessarily based on anything. So, thus concludes the timeline of real-world history, told only using tabs factions. And I'm sorry I didn't go into too much detail. I just wanted to make the video interesting and not really bog down the pacing. So I didn't really go into the excruciating details, I just kind of briefly touched on its time period. But thank you so much for watching. If you did enjoy, don't forget to leave it a like and perhaps consider subscribing to get more content just like this. And with all that being said, I will see you in the next one.